Verizon. You want to start?
Sure.
And also, please introduce Jim.
Okay.
McGrail.
My name is Peter Bowman, Vice President of External Affairs for Verizon in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. And along with me is Jim McGrail from Telecommunications Insight Group. If I could just make some brief opening comments, Mr. Chairman. Verizon Communications is a $90 billion Dow 30 company. We have a long history of delivering broadband and other wireline and wireless communication services and innovations to our customers. We're financially sound. We've invested hundreds of millions of dollars into supporting this business to guarantee its success. Our advanced fiber optic network, which offers video and data connections directly to the customer premise, is the most sophisticated in the nation. We're supported locally by a highly trained technicians, monitored. Our network's monitored 24/7 for reliability and quality. We have the ability and capacity to troubleshoot issues long before they affect the customer. Hundreds of customer service representatives are located right here in Massachusetts and Andover, Mass, that will be serving this marketplace. We have highly trained technicians ready to install service. On behalf of Verizon, I want to stress our appreciation for the time and effort the town manager and others have taken to work with us to negotiate this agreement. I assure you that if a license is granted tonight, that Verizon will soon provide outstanding alternative video services to your residents, like we're doing in 24 communities. As a matter of fact, right down the street here in the Hunt. We've invested billions of dollars in this network. We've spent over $500 million in building out our infrastructure in Massachusetts alone. We're in the process of investing millions of dollars right here in Swampscott. We have over 14,000 highly trained employees right here in Massachusetts. We're pleased to say that over 40 of your residents are in fact employees of Verizon. Our packages will have more content, over 300 digital channels, a growing number of 2,500 on-demand titles, more high-definition offerings. We'll have better quality, all-digital network, simple plans as low as less than $13 a month, and expanded plans for less than $40 a month. Again, I commend you your desire to bring video competition to your community. And once again, if approved tonight, like I said, we begin the process of offering video to some of your residents very shortly. And if at this point I could turn it over to Jim McGrail for some additional opening comments, and then we'll both be here to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Jim. Excuse me, Peter. Excuse me. Jim, the floor is yours.
Mr. Chairman, as Mr. Bowman said, my name is Jim McGrail. I'm from Telecommunications Insight Group.
Do you think he can be heard okay? I'm just wondering.
Do you want to stand up? Or?
I think you should just shout.
Shout. Wouldn't be the first time.
We're expecting new equipment any day, but until that comes, please speak up.
We're trying to help. Chairman, members of the Board of Selectmen, I would first like to begin by thanking you for the opportunity to appear here tonight to discuss any issues or questions the Board of Selectmen may have and the public may have as they relate to the qualifications of Verizon New England to provide cable television services in the town of Swampscott. As you know, Mr. Chairman, representatives of Verizon New England first met with the town of Swampscott in June of 2005. The purpose of that meeting was to discuss Verizon New England's interest in obtaining a cable license in the town. Since that time, a number of steps have been taken and milestones reached relative to the franchise application before you. I would like at this time to summarize the chronology of events that have occurred since that June meeting and introduce into the record all the applicable documents. On June 7, 2005, Verizon representatives met with representatives from Swampscott to discuss Verizon's interest in obtaining a cable license. On July 15, 2005, the town sent letters to the cable division requesting waivers of certain unnecessary regulatory requirements and giving notice of the town's initiation of the cable licensing process. On July 19, 2005, the cable division granted the town's waiver request. On December 8th and December 10th, 2005, the town solicited for cable license applications by placing legal notices in the line items. On February 9th, 2006, Verizon submitted a cable television license application to the community. On July 20th, 2006, the town issued an issuing authority report setting forth its cable-related community needs. On July 28th, 2006, Verizon responded to the issuing authority report and submitted a proposed cable license. Between that time and the month of November, Verizon and the town met multiple times to negotiate the terms of a cable license and exchange multiple drafts of license agreements during that time. On October 26th and October 30th, The town posted a public notice in the Lynn item for a November 25th public hearing to be held here tonight by the Board of Selectmen. Mr. Chairman, it should be noted at all times for the record, during negotiations with the town, the members of the town's negotiating team were very quick to remind us of the level playing field language in the incumbent agreement. The negotiation team told us from the beginning that when taken as a whole, in light of all relevant circumstances, the town would not grant the license to Verizon that was more favorable or less burdensome than the incumbent agreement. Verizon New England was respectful of the town's wishes throughout the negotiations and believes that the town has satisfied its level playing field obligation with the proposed license that is before you this evening. And Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you and the members of the Board of Selectmen for the opportunity you are giving to Verizon this evening. We have been very careful to ensure the agreement we have negotiated allows us to meet the cable related needs of the town of Swampscott. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. Gentlemen, I'm going to ask people in the audience to ask first, and then we can ask. So, may I ask anyone in the audience regarding this license? Would anyone want to speak against this Verizon license application, please? Okay. Then I assume everybody else is in favor of this license.
There's some.
Okay. Well, any people in the audience, excuse me, like to speak in favor? Just a few, since it's not, no one's against it. Anyone at all would like to say anything about it?
Herb Dalton,
Hi, Herb.
Precinct 6.
Come on in just a little, Herb, so we can hear you a little better, please.
Herb Dalton, Precinct 6. My way of thinking, this comes as close to a municipal no-brainer as you can get. We're talking about moving from
I wouldn't be so sure.
We'll twist it up for a while. We'll start with
Right.
The question is whether we move from a monopoly to a duopoly. And we're not only talking about a question here of price and cost. Probably it will be even more important in the near and distant future is the download speed. Here we're talking about megabytes per second. And Verizon, I believe, does have the optical fiber network that will allow for ever-increasing amounts of download speed, which becomes increasingly important. I had the privilege of serving on the technology committee when Comcast came along. It struck me then, still strikes me now, that they had a monopoly situation here. They were, in a real sense, almost unanswerable as to what they provided. Now, for the first time, we have an opportunity to do something about it. Verizon is something that we should, and I hope will be installed so the citizens of Swampscott will be able to avail themselves. Again, I consider it to be a no-brainer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Belk. Anyone else? Take a couple. Gentlemen in the back, please. Just please stand and identify yourself.
Hi, my name's Ed Robinson. I'm a resident of Swampscott, and I'm a graduate of Swampscott High School in 1978. I'd like to speak in favor of having public access TV with Verizon. Every town in the area, every town but Swampscott, Fayetteville, Newbury, Beverly, Linfield, and Marblehead has public access television. It's standard operating procedure in these towns. Some have set up non-profit organizations to run them, some haven't. It's not required to do that. All make equipment and training available to their residents. Swampscott is the only town that does not provide this valuable service. In case people don't know, public access means anyone can submit or create their own data. Having no public access television means religious groups, churches, and synagogues are shut off from communicating with Swampscott residents over the cable system. Non-profit groups are also blocked. Individuals who want to tape a CYO basketball game or a Pop Warner game and share it over the cable system cannot do so. In fact, with the current selectmen policy, the majority of the town is blocked from communicating with each other over the cable system. Linfield has a smaller population and fewer Comcast subscribers than Swampscott. If they have educational, government, and public access to Verizon, why can't Swampscott? Who can possibly be against it, and for what reason? Because I felt so strongly about this issue, I gathered some signatures on a petition which I'd like to read. We, the underside, around over 100 people signed this petition, Swampscott residents. We, the undersigned residents of the town of Swampscott, Massachusetts, strongly urge the Board of Selectmen of the town of Swampscott to institute and support public access cable television for the residents of the town in order to strengthen and make more meaningful the citizens' rights for freedom of speech and freedom of expression. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Robinson. I just, I don't want to get into a discussion of public access, because that's not the reason why we're here tonight. But, I mean, I've never spoken with you, I don't think anyone else has, regarding our stance on local access. Quite frankly, I think you're incorrect in your assumption, and that's certainly something that we can discuss at a later time. I think one of the things that we have said, that I have said especially, and the board has agreed with me, that, and I've kind of been asked, Mr. Mailer, for a while to get Channel 16 up and running, just so we can show the selectmen's meetings, and just so we can have the screen going to let people know what's going on. You know, I'm sure if you've watched Channel 16, it's not very, you know, professional. It's, the equipment's old, and we're getting it replaced very, very shortly. So that at very least, we can get that up and running and get that going, and then look into, you know, we'll set up, I assume at some point, a cable advisory committee, and look into setting up local access. It's going to take a full-time person to do it. We want, you know, anything like that, you certainly want to do right. And I think anybody on this board, and with any common sense, is in favor of increasing information out to people. So, you know, thank you for your comments. I'm glad you brought it up, and I would like to talk to you about it someday. And but just so, in case anybody is watching Channel 16, if it's working, that certainly is not our policy, like you had stated. So I respectfully disagree. All right, I'd like to move on to someone else that's in favor of.
I'm not sure exactly what you disagree with.
I'm disagreeing with your assumption that we're not in favor of local access.
Well, I taped to play on Channel 16 and refused to play it.
I did?
Town views.
Well, who's the town? Did any of us? I mean, I don't want to get into an argument with you. I'd like to discuss it, but this is not the forum.
If I can weigh in one front,
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
wrap up the discussion. We do not have local access there, and that's why the tape was not played. We don't. I mean, there's no confusion about that. Going with the chairman's comments, that doesn't mean you can't have local access, and it doesn't mean that that in several public meetings, selectmen's meetings, we haven't identified opportunities to expand programming, which, although I can't speak for the board, I think there was general endorsement about expanding programming. How we do that, the method by which it happens, whether that's bringing back a cable advisory that hasn't existed in the town for some time, I think that certainly needs further exploration and study. The reason it is in play today is we just don't have local access, we have government access. So there needs to be a philosophical change, which is to your point. And I think to the chairman's point, no one's closed the door to that. It just needs further discussion and really to understand what's required and what programming you want to allow, if it's just local access in a pure sense or any other additional programming, and find a methodology to make sure that it happens, because some of it is about what's available, what studios are available, what resources for programming are available, who's going to put on those programs and so forth. So I think the board has shown certainly an openness to have a discussion at a deeper level, and I think I would encourage the board to do that, by the way. But in that absence, so there's no confusion, there isn't local access in Swampscott today. And I think that's your point. It just isn't. So.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anybody else? Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jim Smith. I live at 22 Phillips Beach Avenue in Swampscott. I've communicated by mail, so I don't want to repeat those comments. I just want to say that I'm with Mr. Belfin on the status of this in terms of being a no-brainer status. What I'd like to ask you to do is do as quickly as possible. Maybe even, I don't know what your rules allow for, Mr. Chairman, if you vote on it tonight, so this process can begin so that we can get this competition into town, and those of us who would like to switch from our current carrier have an opportunity to do so as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Appreciate your comments. Yes, sir.
John Hetfridge, resident of Swampscott, my street, also an employee of Verizon. I helped in the initial rollout of Fios TV in the Woburn area, and I want to thank you for your work to get this to our area, because I've seen it work, and I've seen especially the high definition, the quality. I think everyone's it's an exciting product, and I look forward to ordering it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. A couple more? Yes, sir.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Kiley. I live on Greenwood Terrace. I'm here as a user, and I subscribe to Comcast cable, internet, and telephone. And maybe many of you here do, but let me just tell you one thing. I got a very interesting phone call on Saturday, and it was from my Comcast rep. Now, many of you that have all three bundled services know it's quite expensive. For no apparent reason, they want to lower my bill by $75 a month, all of a sudden. I find that amazing. But I also think it's because competition's coming, and that can only mean reduced costs for everyone. And as a user, $75 a month is a lot of money, particularly if you're a father of 2 children. Now, I'm not saying I'm unhappy with my service. I'm really not, but I know of nothing else. I don't know of anything else that's out there. So I think this is a great opportunity for the town to impact people on something they use every day, and that's their computer and their television. I know I certainly use more than my fair share, but as a user, competition is a good thing. I come from a town, I've only been here 10 years, I'm sorry, that had competition, and that was Somerville. Somerville was the first town that had competition. And my mother still lives there, and she still calls me every time. They're still going back and forth. She switches back and forth all the time, each time the rates get up. It's a great thing for users, and I can't encourage the town strongly enough to undertake this endeavor.
Thanks, John. Appreciate your comments.
Mr. Chairman, if I can, there was a resident who contacted me that I didn't get into your packages, and I feel obligated to speak on that person's behalf. Resident of 45 Lincoln Circle, with some specific questions to Verizon, I think would be helpful for everyone in the room. What is the expected rollout? Let's make a presumption that the board acts favorably on the license request this evening. Some communication to the town about what's going to be rolled out, where it's going to be rolled out, the timing of the rollout. There are sections in Swampscott today that don't have DSL service, which in this day and age is just shocking, quite frankly. I'll call it DSL service, but high-speed internet service. What does it mean for those sections of town? I think if you can speak a little bit about the rollout, it would be very helpful for everybody.
Sure. We expect to serve, I think the committee and the license to serve the entire town. Our build-out is broken down into 3 separate areas. First is aerial. If you have telephone poles in front of your house that have aerial wires, we would serve you in that manner. That area, 82% of the community is served aerially, and we expect that we will be able to serve 82%. So therefore, we expect that we'll be able to serve 82% of the people within the first year of the license. The second component.
Can you guys hear that back there? Okay, I don't want to stop. 82% of the community is served aerially through telephone poles, and there's an expectation that all of those folks that are served in that way would have service available within the first 12 months of the license signed. Is that fair?
That's fair. We have 8% of the people are served via underground, buried wires, buried fiber. There's 2 components to that. Years ago, telephone companies would dig a hole in the ground and just throw their copper wires in the ground. With the fiber product, obviously, in this day and age, we're not going to just dig a dirt hole and throw some fiber in there. If there's a conduit system that exists and there's enough room in the conduit system, we would just pull the existing fiber, pull the fiber through the existing conduit system. If, in fact, there isn't a conduit system in place or there isn't enough room in the existing conduit system, we will come to the town for the necessary permits to build out a conduit system. And again, that represents 8% of the community. The remaining 10% of the community is served via multiple dwelling units, anything above a 3-family home, an apartment building, a housing authority, senior housing, or something of the sort. In those particular instances, we need to not only get a license from the community, from the board to provide services, but we also need a right of entry agreements from these respective property owners to gain access to their property. The difference between our product and anybody else's on the market is that we're bringing a direct fiber node to everybody's home. So if you do live in an apartment building and you subscribe to us, we would bring, and just for the sake of argument's sake, with a 50-unit complex, we would bring 50, and all 50 people wanted it, we would bring 50 separate nodes right to the people's properties. So, our product is a good product, and I think that, because of the uniqueness of it, I think that people will be attracted to it.
So when do you think the 10 and the 8 would expect to see service?
We have, under the state statute, we have up to 6 years to provide service to everyone. In the license that we negotiated with the town, we committed to providing service to a significant amount of subscribers within 12 months, and that would certainly represent at least the 82% of the people. And then we've committed to reducing that 6-year requirement to 5 years. So ultimately, our obligation in license is to get to everybody in the town within 5 years. Now, that being said, I think that obviously it's in the Verizon's best interest to get it to people as quickly as it possibly can. So in light of the fact that we'll be able to reach 82% of the people very quickly, I think that what we typically do is once we get a franchise and we feel we can get a return on our investment, we start dedicating representatives to start negotiating the right of entry agreements, and we start directing resources to begin the underground work. In Massachusetts, obviously, the cities and towns all have the requirement that you can't really do any buried work between November 15th and April 15th unless, the weather abides. So if we can get in here beforehand and the town allows us to do so, we will. If not, you can be rest assured that on April 16th, they'll be doing work to get to people as quickly as they can.
Thanks.
Some more follow-up.
Mr. Mill?
Is it fair to say that the infrastructure on that 82% is substantially complete?
Yes.
The other thing I'd just like to bring out is the fact you mentioned DSL, and this is a brand-new fiber network coming out of the Lynn Wire Center, which serves Swampscott, so it is, as Jim highlighted, but I just want to stress this, it is fiber to the premise, so it is a brand-new network that we bring right to the premise. So streets or areas that previously could not get DSL, because DSL does have a distance limitation in it, that's not an issue here, is not distance sensitive, and we are building it out through the entire community.
Okay. Anybody else? Mr. Reed, I want to acknowledge you. Our Tom Reed from the high school, he runs our TV part does an excellent job with the young men and women who's doing our production
Brian
tonight.
Dennehy. Hi, Brian.
Brian,
I want to thank the board and certainly thank Andrew for all the work you've done to bring this competition in. I agree with everyone else. Anything that gives people another way to get local cable to see what the great things that my kids do instead of getting DirecTV is fine with me. I did want to ask, since we're on the question of timetables, as you know, we're going to be building a new school and moving into a new school. About when would you expect that our local educational channel, in addition to being carried for Comcast subscribers, could be carried for Verizon subscribers?
We committed, Andrew brought that point up during the course of negotiations, and we committed that once you give us access to that new facility will be able to provide service within 120 days of being there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Thank you for all you do for the students in the town. We appreciate it. Okay, motion to close the public hearing if there's nothing else? Second, please? Yeah. Okay. Then, okay, I'll go around the table. Anyone else? Mr. Cassidy, would you like to? Or
we can close the public hearing,
yeah.
And then we can, so I
right.
made a motion to close it.
Okay. Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
My question was, I think the same thing as Jill's at first was, I know I'm in an area where we don't have access to any of the Verizon products as of yet, and I'd like to get there as quickly as possible. And I am very happy to see competition come to town, and look forward to having you here.
Thank you, Mr. Cassidy. Mr. Foreman, any questions or comments?
Really, I had the same issue about the timing. I would just point out, although it sounds like you're on top of this anyway, the 12-month period is for you to install for businesses, not for residents, and it's up to 5 years for residents in this agreement.
No, the 12-month period is because relative to residents, it says we shall provide services. So those numbers, that 12 and 5 years relates to residents. With regard to the business community, it says May, but we intend to serve all. But the resident, that's our first priority here in the town of Swampscott is to the residents.
Right. Well, it's good to hear the schedule. I had a question actually from Mr. Mailer. The time frame for this is 15 years. Was that the same for?
No, as a new licensee, they're allowed to request 15 years if I think both what I've looked at in terms of other community models and the compelling argument that they begin day one with practically no customer base is the reason why under the regulations are allowed a 15-year license, and I think they've advocated successfully that it benefits us from an economic, financial perspective in the contract to support the 15-year license.
And just one final question. In the opening statements, the observation was made that the town wanted a level playing field and wanted both the economic terms to be the same for Verizon as for Comcast. And is it your opinion that that's exactly what's been accomplished if we vote for this?
The short answer is yes. The slightly longer answer is that it's actually language within the Comcast agreement that there needs to be level playing field. So it's not only a town's a desire, but it's also contractually obligated. So I absolutely feel that this is level playing field language. Of course, it has slight differences. The length of the contract, a license at 15 years is allowed. There's reasons for that. The economic capital investment into the community is the same as the Comcast agreement, rolled out slightly differently, but the same. The franchise fee is exactly the same. So it's much about the agreement that, in fact, is very much substantial.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure. Mr. Stanton.
I just have a couple questions. I remember 10 years ago, we actually begged for competition as far as the cable system. I believe it was then Warner Cable, and the only taker, the only other firm that was interested was RCN, and I think that they eventually went bankrupt or whatever, but they didn't see it feasible. But I think right now we have a winner with Verizon, and I just have a couple questions regarding the program. When you said you will offer the HD stations like Comcast, will it be the same number or the same type of programs? Like if somebody's concerned, the Nessons of the world that come in HD, and you can offer those type of programs?
Absolutely, and because of the nature of our network, where it is fiber to the prem, it's really unlimited, so we have capacity. So it's our view that we'll have more high definition and more robust programming because of the capacity. It is not limited in any way because it's fiber to the prem, where other infrastructures have been fiber to a node, and then it goes from the node to the home or to the prem and coax. So sometimes there is a capacity limitation in other networks. This network virtually has no limitation whatsoever. So we do think our program will be very robust and highly competitive.
As far as the boxes, the HD boxes or the regular boxes, will we be able to buy those, or do we continue to have to lease that on top of our cable bill, paying the lease? I mean, it's $14, $15 for the HD box, and I think if you add that on your cable bill, you're starting to talk, really running up there. Is there an opportunity to possibly buy those?
I mean, our current plan is that we rent or lease the boxes to customers, but I think as the business rolls out and the beauty of having multiple competitors and with companies such as Comcast and Verizon competing in the community, that with the marketplace demand, there'll be now more opportunity to do things such as that. So currently it is our intention to lease those boxes, but that's as we roll it out today, and by no means
right, yeah.
At the end.
And I just, looking very much forward to this. And I know that this isn't related, and you don't have to, I don't expect any answers, but if you could get a Verizon representative to come talk to this board about improving the cell service in Swampscott. It's always fallen upon deaf ears. It doesn't seem like they want to put a cell tower in.
You have to understand that he actually asked you a few other questions before he had a sound. Danny was remarkable constraint.
No.
I can actually, we do work very closely, and it's not a direct, but I work very closely with our wireless engineers, and I'd be more than happy to take that back and figure out what the issues are.
Because it hasn't improved in 5 or 6 years now. The Humphrey Street area is virtually a dead area, and people down towards Phillips Beach can't get cell service in their homes or use the Verizon wireless access cards. So, again, we're here tonight for cable, but I would appreciate if you could send a representative here to address that particular problem.
Absolutely, I'll work back through you if I could.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley. Mr. Baker, anything else you want to
Just a couple of questions. One is, 5 years is sort of the 15-year contract. 5 years is the time frame for the initial rollout at the longest level. Where do you think the whole technology is going to go vis-a-vis cable versus wireless versus other forms of distribution? And are you expecting and anticipating that this is going to be a cable-based game for a very long time or not?
We do anticipate that. I think what we've done as a company is we've taken it at a couple of different angles. One is we're clearly building out fiber to the premises, as we call it, to say, because basically the copper infrastructure doesn't no longer serve the needs of the general population. It doesn't allow you to put voice data and video all in one network. So that's our strategy on the landline side of the business, is to build out this broadband network. And we don't, basically back to your question also, as we view this as the beginning. We're built out the network, we're rolling out video, we're getting licenses, but then we feel that there'll be more and more applications, more and more speed can be put on this network. So we view that's one element of our overall strategy. And clearly the other element of it is we push from the other end, and that's the wireless end of things, where it's no longer just a voice platform, it's also a data platform, and it's also a video platform. So we see really just trying to get customers from all angles and provide the service and meet the needs of consumers. And we do that this is a long-term commitment, and as Mr. Mailer said, we made a 15-year commitment to it. And we see that cable services, yes, will continue to be a land-based,
Okay.
For the future.
5 years is a really long time, and for a lot of people, 12 months is going to feel like a really long time. I don't think it would be a bad idea if either quarterly or semi-annually, you just put this on the agenda and we talked about where we are. I think that if we have some regularly scheduled point, whether it's in February or May, or August or November. Actually, I think February, May, August, November would be good. I think we should have some regularly scheduled, anticipated update on sort of where we are and what's going on, so that that we're going to expect to hear quarterly or semi-annually where we are in this stuff. The town's going to hear it, and you can incorporate it in the schedule, and we can expect it. I think it'd be a drag if it took 5 years to get the whole town done, to tell you the truth.
Well, if I can make 2 comments on that, I think, as you know, Mr. Baker, I'm locally based here, working in Boston, so I'm more than happy to come out, to give the board regular updates. We also assign a service manager, to each community that's co-located with me in Boston that would be monitoring this on a regular basis to ensure that services are rolled out. And as Mr. McGrail said, it is not our intention to take 5 years to get this all built out. It is our intention to roll this out as quickly as possible so that we can get customers. And it goes back to your point, your initial question, about do we see this as being the future? Yes, we do, but we need to make our future profitable on these types of networks. So clearly, we do not have a customer on our video platform today here in the town of Swampscott. We need to get customers, and we need to roll this network out more aggressively. So it would be our intention to do it sooner rather than later.
2 things to that. One is that, really 3 things. One is even just a written summary of the amount of new accounts added on some kind of regular basis. In the first year of rollout would be helpful to the board to understand that. 2, a mechanism of funding being the franchise fee is contingent upon gross revenues. Those gross revenues are generated off users paying monthly service charges for the service they provide, so we see that in the form of reporting. And then finally, the commitment of the capital investment, what I call capital investment in the community, of the $225,000, $125,000 is seen within 60 days of the approval of the license, may very well arrive before the first Verizon Fios customer rolls out in Swampscott. So it shows your interest, the link to our interest, is in order to try to get that money back in your own way through investment or return on your capital investment, you need customers. So there's clearly a link.
Well said. Thank you, Mr. Excuse me, Peter, just a quick question. I've been asked this. I do a lot of work with our seniors in town, just wondering if there's any special provisions for any discounts or anything for them in their behalf?
If I could just maybe turn that question to
We don't, there's nothing specifically in our license relative to senior discounts. We don't, we have 27 licenses in Massachusetts to date. We have over 200 nationwide. There are no senior discounts in there. From a legal's perspective, Verizon sees discounts as a form of rate regulation that with effective competition. They just don't want to go down that path. However, obviously, as an entry into the marketplace, a second entry to the marketplace, someone that needs to attract, customers young and old, we're going to have to come into this community, and if the marketplace dictates that the discount is necessary, well, and warranted, then we'll have to provide a discount. We just don't want to legally obligate ourselves to do so, but never rule it out.
Okay, thanks.
Again, in the context of parity, Comcast, not surprisingly, has a similar position, and the relationship with Comcast post-license was effectively a side letter of agreement to afford seniors discounts in Swampscott, and we would encourage Verizon to do the same.
I think it's also important to note, one of the people that spoke here tonight had mentioned that he had received a call on Saturday about reducing his bill. Typically, when a second entrant comes into the marketplace, you'll see cable rates reduced by as much as 27%. So we've seen in other communities where we've brought licenses to the table, and all of a sudden, Comcast has taken their bundled services down from $160 a month to $90 a month and things of that sort. So we expect that will continue here in Swampscott, as it's already seen that we've already done. So I think it's ultimately competition will result in discounts and negative performance.
Okay.
I received a call from both companies on Friday night, just so you know. One at like 6 and one at 7. Incredible.
Okay, Peter, thank you. Jim, thank you.
Can I just ask Peter one thing?
Sure.
I know this is a little bit over the top, but when you're doing the program, and I remember 10 years ago, the town wanted the Golf Channel, and we pounded the table for months on that. But the NFL Sunday Ticket, where you can get all 16 games, is very important. Now, DirecTV has a monopoly on that, and I think with these new customers, and would be able to make a substantial bid so we could access those 16 games.
Yeah,
So when
yeah,
it-
it's consistent.
Keep that in mind, please.
Do is get you on your new cell phone,
Okay, there you go.
Mr. Chairman, if I can make a recommendation?
Yes. I just want to thank everyone for coming and discussing this tonight. And Mr. Belkin, thank you for your vote of confidence that this is a no-brainer. Mr. Mailer?
As the board knows, I've forwarded you what I'll identify as a draft license agreement with Verizon. I would like to recommend that the board take favorable action this evening on that license with two caveats. A motion which would include amending section 6.1.2, sounds like a zoning bylaw, 6.1.2.1, in the first sentence, removing the words non-character generated. The remainder of the agreement to remain as provided to the board, and that Exhibit B, which identifies the town properties in which cable drafts will be provided. Those properties, by the way, are identified in Section 5E of the Massachusetts Cable Law. We're afforded the ability to have cable drafts, but that, I satisfactory with complete discussions with Verizon to make sure that we're agreeing to the same buildings, but with those two caveats, that the board take affirmative action to approve the license as proposed to Verizon.
Thank you.
We agree with those changes.
Okay. Do I have any motions on the floor?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the Verizon contract with the amendments made by Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Cassie. Second, please.
Second.
Mr. Santinello, all in favor, please?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, it passes. Thank you.
Congratulations, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, do you think in the future we should definitely deal with that, the access, the local access, and how we
Absolutely.
on that?
I think we should, without question. Thank you. Okay, nice to meet you.
Thank you, guys.
Nice to meet you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Brad?
Thank you, Brad.
Stand it down for me. Thank you. I show up.
They do it. They don't. Really? They won't go in. They don't know what's going to happen.
Okay. Good night, Jim.
See you later.
I don't think that was, they just,
I was like, this is awesome. I'm so psyched.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
I think this
You guys
is
are
great.
happy.
I mean, prices are gonna collapse. It's gonna be awesome.
On the local access issue, I know I heard Mr. Santinello say this, that we should probably get it on the agenda and talk about it, and I agree with that. I think that we ought to let people know where we stand on the issue, and I think that what they'll find is that we're not opposed to it. It's just that the devil's in the details, and that there's going to be a cost associated with it, and we're going to have to figure out where that cost is going to come from. But I think we ought to have a discussion about
How we're
it.
gonna pay for it.
Huh?
How we're gonna pay for it.
Yeah, we're going to pay for it.
And man it with personnel.
Well, that's the cost issue.
Yeah.
So I think we ought to talk about it, and we ought to get out there what we think the cost would be and why we don't have the money, even though it looks like this new cable provider is going to give us over time $225,000. We ought to be able to explain to the town why it is. That doesn't mean we necessarily have money to do a full-scale local access channel. So I think that's a great idea, and we ought to do it.
I also think that we should have a more broad discussion about public access cable, because I can't tell exactly what it is that our obstacles are, and would love to know.